What's up guys, Nick True here, and it's time to make a video that a bunch of you have been requesting, and that's what are my favorite features inside the toolkit for YNAB. Let's jump in. Alright, so first off, you need to add the toolkit to your browser. So just go to toolkitforynab.com and you'll come to a page that looks like this. Now you should know the toolkit does not work for Safari. It is only working for Chrome and Firefox. And it also goes without saying that this is not going to affect the YNAB app on your phone. All you really need to know here is that the Toolkit for YNAB is just an awesome extension put together by a group of fantastic developers. If you're super nerdy and you want to get into all the different behind the scenes, you can check out their Trello board and also their GitHub, and they have all sorts of information about different features that they may add, and you can even go over here and vote on kind of upcoming features and say which ones you think would be most helpful for you. So go ahead and get it added to your browser, and once you do that, you're going to have this nice little shortcut up here. It looks kind of like a plus sign. Right now it's red because it's disabled, but if we turn it on and click Open Settings, it'll open up all of the different features and settings inside of the toolkit. Now you should also know that every time you turn a setting on or off, like this, or you come down here and you change one of the settings, you need to click Save, and then you actually won't see it immediately update in your browser. You need to refresh your YNAB, and then once you refresh, you'll notice that the toolkit has taken effect. All of that being said, I'm going to be going through my favorite features and settings, and you can see there's a lot of them. You got the general settings, which is just YNAB across the board. You got your account settings, which are going to be things that affect the account page when you're inside of an actual account. Got your budget settings, which is going to affect the budget screen when you're actually looking at this stuff here. You've got some report settings, and then you've got a couple extra tabs here. Really, the general through the reports is what we're going to talk about. Big shout out to Elizabeth Starr Harden, who actually has done a deep dive series on every single feature currently inside of YNAB as of the spring 2019. So big shout out to her. I actually watched all these videos and was able to pull a good bit of information from it, kind of taken my favorite pieces, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you here, is my favorite ones. So let's just jump into the first feature that I want to show you, and that is to allow resizing of the side menu. Now, what that means is basically over here, you previously can't do anything about this size. It's completely fixed. But with this feature, you can basically just make this, as big or as wide as you want, which is really nice if you have long checking account names. It's also really nice if you're on maybe a smaller screen and you want to squeeze this in so you can really maximize the area over here. Now, the second feature is this collapsible side menu, which is very similar, and it just cleans this up for you so that we can focus on the things that are the most important. All right, the third feature is, again, a time-saving feature, and it's the budget quick switch. For people who have like maybe one personal budget and a business budget, and maybe one more if they really needed three, this feature would be really, really handy. Basically, what it does is it changes the drop-down menu right here so that when you click that, you have access to all of your different YNAB budgets. It saves you time from having to go back to the main open budget screen and then switching that way. All right, the fourth setting that I really like is to change how the enter button works. When you're adding transactions right now, if you press the enter key, then it immediately will choose save and add another. Like you're just adding a bunch of transactions over and over again. This is always annoying to me because I'm very rarely doing that. So when I press enter, I want it to just default to save rather than save and add another. And so that's kind of a feature that I really enjoy. All right, the next feature that I want to show you is to add the menu when you're right clicking on a transaction. So again, we'll go here, and normally when you click on a transaction, if you click edit, you have this nice menu that gives you a bunch of options. Well, now with this setting, you can just right click and it will give you those same options right here on that transaction. All right, the sixth setting that I want to show you is also an account screen setting. So we'll scroll way down here, and it's the toggle scheduled and reconciled transaction buttons. Now, I don't do the icons and text labels. I just like the icons. But basically what this does is it allows you to easily change the register here to show you scheduled and reconciled transactions by adding these two icons here. So if you unclick this, you'll notice that it minimized my scheduled transactions. If you click the reconcile the lock button, it'll bring up all the reconciled stuff. So normally you would have to go through here, click filter, click unshow and OK. This just allows you to quickly toggle on and off the reconciled stuff. I normally like to keep them hidden, but every now and again, if I'm looking for a transaction to specifically see something, it's nice to be able to quickly turn it on and turn it off. All right, the 7th feature is the first one we're going to look at that's on the budget screen, and it's a really fun one, kind of an easy one, but we're just going to add the credit card emoji to our credit card payments category. So you'll notice that if you want to edit category groups, you can add things in here like emojis, which I actually do a lot of in my real life budget, especially in my business budget. But you can't edit the credit card payments group because it's a default one that YNAB automatically creates when you put in credit cards. And so this just adds a credit card emoji right there, which is kind of nice if you like using emojis. I do because I like to quickly be able to see my credit card category and how it's separate from all the other categories. All right, the 8th setting is this one here, also on the budget screen, the current month indicator. Now, let me turn it off real quick so you can kind of see what it looks like. But basically what it does is it changes the top bar up here to be a lighter blue color so that you can actually see what your current month is. So right now you can see August looks the same as the rest of this bar. If we go into September, if we go back into July, it all looks the same. But if I come over here, turn this on, hit save, and do this, and refresh, you'll notice that August's color is lighter and makes it stand out a little more. So again, July, August changes, and then September goes back. This is nice if you're doing a lot of budgeting ahead into the future so that you don't think you're in the right month when you're actually not. All right, the 9th feature I want to show you is the days of buffering metric. I'm going to turn this one on. Now, this one is similar to the age of money, but it's slightly different. So you're going to notice that I actually don't have an age of money calculation for this example, and that's because I just created this whole YNAB setup basically to emulate a bunch of expenses over the past week, and it's a brand new setup. And so age of money actually needs a certain minimum threshold of transactions and dates before it can calculate your age of money. The days of buffering, on the other hand, it looks forward instead of backwards. So let me explain. I want you to remember the age of money is calculated by looking at the date of when your dollars came in and then calculating the average time that a dollar stays in your checking account until that dollar goes out. So if you can imagine this big stack of $1 bills, every time you get paid, it goes to the bottom, and then as you take off the top, eventually those dollars rise in the stack. And what the age of money looks at is the average time a single dollar is staying inside of your stack. Now, the days of buffering looks at things slightly different. The days of buffering basically looks at and says, hey, on average, you spend this much. It's going to use that average spending and then look and see how much money you have on hand, actual cash money you have on hand, and then see if you were to basically not get paid again at all, how long would the current money that you have on hand last you? In this particular example, our days of buffering is 114 days. We could last 114 days based on our average spending if we didn't get paid another dime. Now, if you really want to dig into the details here of this days of buffering metric, there's actually another setting that you can look at. And if you read this description here, you can find it. But basically, there's another setting that can tell you how far back you want to look at that average spending. So here you can decide, do you want to look at all the spending in your YNAB? Do you want to look at just the past year, 6 months, 3 months, or 1 month? But like I said, this one, like all of them really, is just a personal preference. Do you like using age of money? Do you like using the days of buffering? Both metrics are interesting and helpful in their own ways. At the end of the day, I do try to not get too terribly caught up into the days of buffering or the age of money. And actually what I go by is just simply how far ahead, how many months ahead can I budget for? So in my business, for example, in addition to an emergency fund, I actually try to be 2 months completely budgeted ahead. That means as the business makes money in August, I'm actually taking those dollars and putting them ahead into October's spending. All right, the 10th feature that I want to show you is this hide total available section. The total available just looks at all of the cash that you have on hand. So this is basically all the money in your checking, wallet, savings, emergency, all of it that's in the budget. It doesn't look at tracking, but all of it that's in the budget. Now, some people, especially as you start building up a nice savings account and get budgeted 1 or 2 or 3 months ahead in your checking account and have an emergency fund, this number starts looking really, really big. We want to focus on our categories and only make spending decisions based on those, not our account sizes. So that's one of the reasons I really like having this turned on. So we're not really focused on our total cash. We're focused on our categories. All right, the next setting is also going to change a few things over here. It is the link to inflows. Again, budget screen down here, link to inflows. Turn it on. We can see that it actually makes this clickable. So if we go back to July, we can see that we had total inflows of $2,000. That's how much money kind of came in during this month. That's what the inflows were. And if we click, it will take us right to those total inflows. We can immediately see here that we have an inflow to be budgeted of $2,000. Basically just filters out the account for income in July 2019. All right, the next setting is also on the budget screen, and it's this one here, enable categories filter. If you have a ton of categories and you just quickly want to look at something, you can just type it in right here and say, well, I really just want to see where I'm at on groceries. And it'll pull it right up. How much fun spending money do I have? Nick has $12 left. Hannah has $60 left. So I really like this feature. Again, just saves me time as I'm searching around the budget for something specific. While we're talking about categories, the 13th feature that I want to show you is the Make Categories drop-down larger. So I'm going to turn it on, hit Save, then come over here. Now what this means is that when I click on this, for example, maybe I want to send money from here to one of these categories, you just don't see a lot, and it's really, really tight. But if I turn that setting on, and then I do my refresh, now when I go to move money, I get a lot more down here. All right, the 14th feature is the paid in full credit card. And so what this does is it basically adds an assist that allows you to quickly offset your credit card balance if you want to make sure that you're paying in full every single month. Now, I actually personally don't love this feature. I don't use it, but it is kind of neat, so I wanted to show it to you. So you can see here that the available amounts on both of these credit cards has now turned this kind of yellowish color. And if we look at the inspector, there's a new button down here that says rectify the difference. And what we notice is that our Visa card is currently only available to pay $1,320. So in our checking account, we have $1,320 ready to pay against the Visa card. And the actual balance on the Visa card is $2,210. So we can see that the difference between what we have available to pay and the actual balance of the card is $890. So this is kind of cool. But as far as from a practical standpoint, if we click this button, we will immediately budget $890 from to be budgeted down here. And so all of a sudden we have the total amount available to pay against our Visa card. Same thing here. You can see that we're off by $4,900 because we only have $100 to pay against our $5,000 balance. Now, the reason I don't personally find this feature all that helpful is because if you're the kind of person who is in deep credit card debt, then you're not really caring about what the difference is between what you can pay now and what the balance on the card is. You're just trying to use as much money as you can to pay down as much as you can. So needing to rectify the difference doesn't help you. Now, if you're the type of person who is trying to pay off their balance in full every single month, I still don't love this option because rather than budgeting money from here down to here, we should instead be using our to be budgeted to budget for spending inside of our categories so that we are budgeting for spending, then spending it on a credit card, and then YNAB will correctly move this money from these categories up to our credit card payment category. We shouldn't be in a habit of overspending on our credit card and then in the next month needing to take money from to be budgeted and put it down here in the budgeted column on our card. Now, if you're confused about any of that, of what I just said, highly, highly recommend go and check out my YNAB credit card guide video. It's a super in-depth guide on how credit cards work in YNAB. But I'll just leave it there for now. All right, the next couple of features that I want to show you all have to do with goals. And hands down, these are some of my favorite features in all of the toolkit. So this feature right here, this total monthly goals, you can find it by going to the budget screen and turn on display total monthly goals. This feature right here, I don't know why it's not built into YNAB by default. Right now, if you want to see all of your goals and the combined amounts of them, you have to go forward and then look at this underfunded. Whereas what the total monthly goals does is it just shows you your total monthly goals, because the underfunded isn't even great, because all of a sudden if you start budgeting for things, it changes the underfunded amount because it only shows you those goals that haven't yet been reached. But I like being able to see it right here in total monthly goals. Now, the reason it just changed is because some of these goals here are target category balance by date. So obviously, if I don't budget for them in August, they will get updated and I will need to budget more for them in September in order to stay on track. But seriously, I cannot rave about this feature enough. The reason I like adding goals into every single category and then looking at my total monthly goals is it forces you to come face to face with reality and say, hey, look, I added goals for every category. So I stated my intention. I stated my plan. My plan is to spend for these goals in every category. And then all of a sudden you look and see, well, my plan is to spend $3,900, $68, $22. And you have to answer the question, do I make that much money? Will I actually bring in enough in August to fund all these goals? And if the answer is no, which it is for a lot of people, then now you know that you need to start going back, look at your budget, and figure out where you can cut back or, increase income. All right, the 16th feature I love also on goals is right here, and it adds a goals indication. And so again, what it does is it adds this brand new column right here. Now it doesn't do the numbers, that's another one I'll show you in a second, but it adds an M right here for monthly. So it tells you whether or not you have a goal set up for this specific category, and it will tell you what type of goal you have. In this case, I have a monthly funding goal set up. Most of mine are monthly funding, which is what you should do as well. D is for target category balance by date. So this tells me that I have car insurance goal set up for October, and it says I want to have $1,000 set up by October the 19th, right? And the D indicates what type of goal it is. It will add a T right here if I add just a target category balance goal, which I really don't use. Honestly, I don't have a lot of value for those, but it will add a T. And then also, if you do an upcoming transaction, it will add a U right here for upcoming transactions. While we're talking about this, let's go ahead and talk about these numbers, probably my second favorite feature. So again, if we go back to the budget screen, this one you have to kind of scroll way down here for display target goal amount and over budget warning. There's a handful of different options here, and you can make it red or green and kind of change the color of the number. So for example, if I hit save here and refresh, it will actually change the colors of those numbers based on what's going on. So in this particular case, it will show me when I have over budgeted for something. So in this case, I have a dining and eating out goal of 50, and I've actually budgeted 105 for the month. Okay, so it will turn this red. I don't really care about that. All I really care about is just being able to see the goal. I'm fine to make my own decisions as to whether or not I will underfund or overfund a specific goal. I use the available column to kind of help me indicate what I need to be doing, but I love seeing a fourth column right here and see my goals. Like I showed in my YNAB budgeting, like the envelope system, I love having all four columns so I can see, okay, this is my groceries envelope. Here is my goal. My goal is to spend 400, to budget 400. I've actually budgeted 400 for the month. I've currently spent 378.22, and I have 196 left over. And you might go, what? The math doesn't add up. And that's because I actually brought 174 into the month of August with me that was left over from July. All right, the next one that I love is the goal indicator warning color. So again, also on the budget screen, and it basically changes the orange to blue, which is what you've been seeing here. So I'll turn this off and remind you what it looks like normally. What I hate seeing is the fact that overspending on a credit card is the same color as not fully funding your goal. So when you're scrolling through here, by default in YNAB, you have the green color, which says, hey, you have money here, it's available for you. And then you have this kind of yellow-orange color, which basically says, hey, you should pay attention. You should see what's going on here. But you have to look at the symbol, and you have to look at the dollar sign, whether it's a positive or negative, to understand, is this color because I haven't fully funded my goal? Or is this color because I have overspent on a credit card? So what I like is that when I change and add this one in, this goal indicator warning color, it makes all the ones where I just simply haven't fully funded my goal blue. So now I have four colors, right? I've got the green like normal, I've got blue, which is what I know hasn't met my goal yet, and then I have this color's only for overspending on a credit card. And then of course we always have the red for overspending on a debit account. All right, the next feature that I want to show you is one that I've actually gotten a decent amount of questions about, and it's because it's one of the most confusing, and it has to do with pacing, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just do this and show you what it does. But it essentially adds another column to your budget called pacing. And it changes the colors to let you know whether or not you are ahead or behind for the month. Now, there's a couple things that is really confusing about pacing, okay? So if you're going to use it, I highly recommend do not use it on fixed bills. It's not going to make any sense on fixed bills. So to turn it off, you can just click on the ones that you don't really want to see. And focus only on really the living expenses are the ones that matter the most. Things like groceries, things like gas, things like clothing, things that you're using regularly throughout the month. Let me go back and talk this through. Got $400 that we budgeted for groceries. Okay, we've spent $378, which means we've only got $21 left to get us through the month, and it's currently August 21st. So that means we're only 3 weeks in, and we spent almost the entire groceries budget. So what pacing does is it tells us, hey, you're way behind. Like, you should not have spent this much on groceries. You've already spent most of your money. You've blown through it. And so what it says when we hover over it says you're actually 8 days behind schedule. So the nice thing about pacing is if you are the type of person where you're budgeting $400 a month for groceries and you really want to try and stay at about $100 a week, pacing can be nice to kind of see where you're at, how far off either behind or ahead you are. All right, number 20 is another one of my favorites, and this one is really more about speed and efficiency, and it's toggle all master category groups open or close. Again, on the budget screen, it adds this little button right here, which just makes you be able to do that. It's super nice. So rather than going through and minimizing a bunch, if I'm like, oh, what's going on? I'll just minimize that, go and look at just fund spending, or minimize that, look at debt repayment. Then when I'm done, I'll just open them all back up. All right, the 21st feature that I want to show you is this reports screen. Now, there is a setting called Toolkit Reports. I'm going to show you that one in a second, but these actually modify the default reports inside of YNAB. So I'm going to turn them off real quick and just show you what it looks like. Most of these modify the income versus expenses screen. So if I go here, click over to income versus expenses, you'll see here that it's like really spread out all the months. There's a ton of white space. It's a really hard report to navigate. So when you turn this on, it compacts, it makes everything compact. When you turn this on, it allows you to highlight a specific row that you're hovering over. When you turn this on, it just makes the row empty instead of putting all these zeros in here. Basically just cleans this report up. So let me refresh. So now we can see this report is way more manageable. I can see all 12 months on one screen. I can see totals. I can see averages. It will actually highlight a specific row as I hover over it, and it puts empty cells instead of zeros. So again, just makes this report super clean. All right, the 22nd feature that I want to show you, actually the last feature that I'm going to show you, is the Toolkit Reports. Now, this is kind of like the YNAB reports, but it adds an extra report, and it also just kind of shows things a little differently. So here's all of our spending, and you can kind of see the differences already. The Toolkit Reports has a different color palette. You can also see the totals right here on this screen rather than having to look at them over here or click into them or hover over them on the YNAB screen. But it's, like I said, it's similar, so you can click in here, kind of see all this as well. And go back to total spending. Now, the Toolkit adds another report called Spending by Payee. I don't find this one personally as helpful. It's kind of interesting, especially if you spend a lot of money, say, for example, at Amazon. They, of course, have their own version of net worth, which is just as similar to YNAB's, and they have this income versus expenses, which is also similar to YNAB. It's just a little more spreadsheet-esque. But let me show you kind of one of the coolest reports that Toolkit fairly recently added called the Income Breakdown. It shows all of your income over here, and it shows it going into the budget, and then it shows your top level category groups here and each category underneath those groups. So you can very quickly see in a super visual manner where all of your income came from, and then kind of what the biggest category groups were and the biggest categories underneath those groups. So for us, what you can see is, we have a lot of spending on campgrounds, a lot of spending on gas because we travel a lot, a decent amount of spending on pets as well. Not surprising at all for us because of what we value. I'm not going to go through and show you every single one of ours, but I do love this report. These are just 22 of the ridiculous amount of features that are available inside the Toolkit. So highly recommend you add this thing to your setup and just start turning them on, hitting save, refreshing your YNAB, and see what you like and what you don't like to get the optimal setup for you. All right, so there you have it. Those are my favorite features inside of the Toolkit for YNAB. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what your favorite feature is. You can also download all of my YNAB checklist, the Getting Started checklist, the weekly and monthly routines checklist, using the link in the description down below. As always, subscribe to this channel if you're serious about getting ahead with your money. And just remember, I can teach you how to budget, but I can't make you do it. The choice is yours. I'll see y'all next time.